Thank you. I will just make note that we were meeting in an executive session where we were discussing legal issues. And I would like to now bring up our first item is the National Association of Government Communicators Blue Pencil and Gold Screen Award. And this is being awarded to our very own Molly Gallagher, who is the Radnor Township Public Information Officer. Sorry, I stumbled your title, but come on up, Molly.
All right, test. All right. So, give the board a moment. Come on down, yeah. So, we are very proud to announce that our Public Information Office, which includes Molly Gallagher and Ian Myers, won the National Association of Government Communicators Blue Pencil and Gold Screen Award in the Grassroots Marketing Campaign category for Around Town Thursdays. If you follow any of the township's social media, chances are you've seen these 1-minute clips. It's covering a different topic every week. If you don't subscribe, I highly recommend. It's a good way to find out more burning items going on a weekly basis around town. The Blue Pencil and Gold Screen Awards are an annual international awards program that recognizes superior government communication products and those who produce them. And Radnor, this is the team. The production, the scripts, everything happens with these two individuals. Molly was in attendance last week to accept the award on behalf of the township. The Grassroots Marketing Campaign category is a premier example of the positive impact that a grassroots campaign can have on a community and its stakeholders. Around Town Thursdays has no budget. It's Ian behind the camera, Molly in front of the camera, and contributions from all of our departments on what the issues are going on around town each week. So please join me in congratulating Molly and Ian for this national recognition and thanking them for a job well done and helping to expand Radnor's communication. Thank you very much. Let me grab your award here real quick.
We're moonlighting. Thank you. You guys do it like it. I like it.
Thank you.
Put the picture of myself. My thumb.
Thank you very much. That's an exciting award and very much deserved. I'll move now to our first round of public participation. If you'd like to come and make a comment, please list your name, where you live, and we keep it to 5 minutes, as Sarah knows.
Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. I'd like to thank Steve Norsini and the township for realizing the severity of the sidewalk issue on Lancaster Pike east of Villanova to Garrett Avenue. I guess it was Melissa who wrote the grant proposal that we got it, and this excellent job that's been done. The sidewalk is much safer. It feels safer to walk to Villanova. I used to work part-time for them as a standardized patient, and I was either going up the north side or was going around through the neighborhoods so that I didn't, because the sidewalk at that time was about an inch higher than higher than the street. And with the cars going and trucks going down at very high speeds, it felt like it was worth your life to walk. So I really want to thank you for doing a really fine job, and it's a safer place to be. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Joe Shaney, 5th Ward Radnor. Nice to see you again. I have two of my colleagues with me, neighbors, Al Conasella and Craig Conway. And if you guys could put the presentation on, we have 5 slides to go through in 5 minutes. This is generally an awareness, but we are going to ask your help for a couple things. So first off, as Maura knows, but many of you may have heard, we always call ourselves the forgotten part of Radnor Township. And we don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but the way our geography works is I work in Garrett Hill, and there's only one way for me to get home, and where I stay in Radnor Township, and when I leave for work or any other thing, I have to leave the township to get to my home. And that's just because there's really one way in and really no way out. And so Hereford Township is our neighbor, and we'll talk about that. It's the next chart. Oh, I have to do it myself. You guys don't do it for me. Okay, all right. So now we're going to blow up just to give you an idea of that corner part. So when you leave, you come down Hereford Road, you pass Wawa, and you take a right, and you get your beer on Landover Road at Bryn Mawr Beverage. The road takes a 90-degree turn, and that turns into Coopertown Road. During that entire journey, Radnor Township is on your right-hand side, and they're all Moira's constituents. Then you take the right on the Highland, and that continues to be Radnor Township until Highland Lane turns, and you'll see it turn down in around 9 o'clock. The Radnor line literally goes straight along and goes eventually to Mill Road. But why we're here tonight to talk to you is our neighbor across the street. Because as you can see, across the street is, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is 19 acres of land that has been always owned by Hereford Township. And one thing you notice is that as neighbors, they were very kind to put all of their physical structures, impervious surfaces, buildings, parking lots, entrance, exits, formal playgrounds, basketball courts, tennis court, picnic gazebo, porta potties, and any high-intensity outdoor lighting as far away from their constituents and as close to the Radnor border as they can. And that's not to make an opinion. You can just see by yourselves that that's a fact, right? And a lot of that predates me. Al's been in the area since early 80s. I've been there since late 80s, and that's just the facts, okay? And despite owning property as little as 30 feet away from new physical structures they put out, we're never given notice of that. Now, in Radnor Township, when St. Aloysius does something, I get an email or a letter in the mail telling me what they're doing and telling me when they're going to come before your board. We don't get anything like that from Hereford. And why that worries us is the next slide. So on March 16th, which is a little bit over a month ago, the Hereford Township School District voted 9-0 to purchase 9 additional acres that border Radnor Township. And they're going to use eminent domain if necessary, since it's a generational opportunity to address an increasing demand for educational services at all grade levels. That's expected to close by 2023, and they have provided no plans public to date. They've either canceled meetings or just delayed meetings any further on this. So what does this mean? Well, I can tell you what the rumor is, right? So far, the largest township school district elementary property by acreage is Coopertown at a little bit under 16 acres. It's also the smallest elementary school by tuition or by population, 500 students. They have an issue, fact, that their middle school is dramatically overpopulated. The middle school is anywhere from 1,500 to 1,600 students. And as an engineer, I can tell you that there's no question, why would you be purchasing 9 additional acres, so now you're up to 25 acres, for one elementary school when by its current size, it's already got the most acreage of any school in Hereford Township. Rumor has it they're going to put the middle school there. I have 1 minute. So rumor is they're going to put the middle school there. Why is that a problem? Highland Lane. Highland Lane is where all of us live. I drew the Radnor Township border there, and you can see what it looks like. We haven't been able to park on our side of the street for the 30 years I've lived there. The other side of the street does allow parking. This is a typical day. You can see a car coming in one direction. Two mommy SUVs can't pass safely at this point. You'll also notice the pedestrians on the right-hand side, they have to jump out of the way because the sidewalks end right there. It's a park over there, so this is not just a school thing. This happens during evenings. Right now, it's T-ball season, happens in summer, fall. So we worry about the safety of our street, and we worry what's going to happen when they buy that additional 9 acres, which, by the way, includes something we knowingly refer to as Dead Man's Curve, because you can see that road goes 90 degrees right where the Radnor and Hereford border ends there at the left-hand side. So, our ask. Currently, they're trying to do their due diligence in purchasing this property, and we ask that you at least request that they do some type of traffic study on the existing property, because even if you put in a school there, we question whether that school would be viable based on the current size of Highland Lane, which is entirely small, and realize that that's our lane, and when I say ours, it's half owned by Radnor. That is not a state road. It's owned jointly by Hereford and Radnor. Longer term, we'd like to know why Hereford never tells us when they build things. Like, they literally built a huge structure 10 feet from our property line, and we were never notified. Doesn't seem right to me. What we ask is that you don't support any widening of Hyden Lane if they come to you and ask for it. And also that once things become clear, that we push back as a township and require them to do the right thing and put entrances and exits on Coopertown Road, not on Highland Lane. There's absolutely no reason in the 21st century why they're using a small lane to dump 500 students rather than 2,000 students, which is possible. We also look for adequate parking. If you look back, you'll notice just briefly, you might have 50 spots there for a 500 school, as well as 4 or 5 parks. Not enough space, not enough parking. Dead Man's Curve, again, right in the middle, and it is an issue. And as I was talking a little bit to Chief Flanagan before, I know it's a Radnor border, and we do have Hereford police across the street almost all the time because there's a school there. But you can see what it looks like almost every night. And I'm just telling you, sooner or later, there's going to be a real problem there. So that's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Really appreciate the presentation. Is there any other public comment?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dorothy Potash. I'm a Radnor resident and have been living here for a little over 9 years at 320 Julep Run. We moved here from Chestnut Hill, falling in love with the village feeling of our community, the beauty of the neighborhood, and quality of our schools. And we've always felt so incredibly safe here. I used to say living in Radnor was like living in a real-life snow globe. However, lately it doesn't feel so safe. Hate seems to have infiltrated our perfect snow globe. My friends, neighbors, and family have all been forced to confront the realities of intolerance and the same hate and anti-Semitism that seems to have taken hold across the country. I'm sure you've all heard the nationwide statistics. According to the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, there was a 36% increase in anti-Semitic incidents last year, and yet many incidents go unreported. According to the FBI's most recent hate crime statistics report published in 2022, Jews were the target of the greatest number of religiously motivated hate crimes in 2021, despite accounting for just 2% of the total U.S. population. The American Jewish Committee's State of Anti-Semitism in America 2022 report revealed that 69% of U.S. Jews experienced anti-Semitism online or on social media, either as a personal target or by seeing anti-Semitic content in the past 12 months. Meanwhile, according to the latest report from the Anti-Defamation League, our state, Pennsylvania, had the highest level of white supremacist propaganda incidents in the nation in 2021. And according to the American Jewish Committee, 74% of Jewish adults reported having heard anti-Semitic or anti-Israel comments in Greater Philadelphia. At Radnor High School, our high school, there have been repeated anti-Semitic jokes, slurs spoken, screamed, and laughed at. And in our neighboring town, just a few weeks ago, a 15-year-old was identified as being the vandal who defaced Valley Forge Middle School with anti-Semitic symbols and racial slurs. Just this weekend, swastikas were spray painted on signs on Thomas Walker and Glen Hardy Road by the Jenkins Arboretum. When I see and hear about this, when once again I have to explain to my children why the doors to churches are always open, yet the doors to our synagogues must be locked and protected by security to ensure the safety of the congregants, why some of their schoolmates hate the Jews, and why they must be subject to seeing the ugly face of a swastika along our beautiful roads. I'm tired, and I'm afraid for them. As parents, my husband and I try to give them the courage to speak up and to demonstrate tolerance and kindness, and to not allow the ignorance of others make them afraid. I try to assure them that the Holocaust will never be repeated. But how can I assure them that they will truly be safe? Not too many years ago, this is how it all began. People listened but said nothing as hateful words were spewed. And then people watched silently as their neighbors' businesses and places of worship were targeted and destroyed. They watched silently as their neighbors and their families were taken, never to be heard from again. They sat by and ate dinner while the smell of burning flesh hung heavy in the very same air they took into their lungs with every breath. All while they sang, went to pray, had parties, fell in love, celebrated life. It all just started with words. In Radnor, I realized there are no synagogues, and I believe Jewish people only make up about 6/10 of the total population, and if I have that incorrect, please forgive me. According to the American Jewish Committee, when Jews are less visible, there tends to be greater incidences of anti-Semitism. So today, I'm here to ask each of you to choose to set an example and speak out as soon as possible, and speak out very loudly against anti-Semitism to make it clear that it will not be tolerated in our township. I ask that you issue a formal resolution to prevent, confront, and combat anti-Semitism in Radnor. I ask that you develop a formal action plan, if you have not done so already, again, forgive me if you have, to prevent and most importantly respond to anti-Semitism when it happens, and to work with other stakeholders in our community and our neighboring towns to build a strong, nonpartisan, non-denominational coalition against hate, to support law enforcement with appropriate training, to encourage the timely and accurate reporting of hate crimes since many go unreported, and to ensure the safety of our Jewish constituents and neighbors. There are plenty of good people and nice people in Radnor who would never physically hurt a Jewish person, but who also may make an anti-Semitic joke or laugh when their friends do, or won't get upset when they see a swastika on a road sign because they mistakenly think that it won't affect them or doesn't affect them. But it does. It affects all of us. Anti-Semitism affects all of us and certainly is an attack on our American values, our democracy, and the best of our collective spiritual and religious values. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you very much for that important statement. Is there any other public comment this evening? Okay, I'm going to move to our consent agenda. At this time, there is an opportunity for anyone to speak, anyone in the public to speak to any item that is on our consent agenda. Is there an item that anyone would like to speak to on consent? Not seeing any, I will ask the commissioners, are there any items that you would like to remove from the consent agenda to discuss further?
G.
Others? Okay, I've got 2 for G, so I am going to move to that item, which is Resolution 2023-45, amending the Radnor Township Organization chart for the Public Works and Police Departments. These changes will be headcount neutral. I'm going to ask Mr. White to speak to that.
Thank you, Madam President. As the title indicates, this resolution would amend both Public Works and Police Department. In each case, 1 position each. So with Public Works, a department of roughly 55 full-time employees. Currently, there are 2 supervisors and then the director. What we're proposing with this resolution is to create an assistant director of public works position, which would allow for better span of control between the supervisors and the different crews, keeping in mind that public works oversees fleet maintenance, sanitary sewer, highways, solid waste recycling, park maintenance, and the township facilities. And then in addition to allowing for greater supervision over all of those different functions, the assistant director position will also help set up the department for long-term succession planning and leadership development for the long term for that department. With regard to police, this is a civilian position change. aimed specifically at succession planning for the auxiliary enforcement division, which is animal control and parking. So it's establishing a full-time position in anticipation of the existing full-time member retiring at some point. We want to make sure that that information is transferred to somebody else and that we don't have a loss in service in that division. In both cases, as the title indicates, we anticipate either promoting or employees transferring from within. So it is headcount neutral. That being the case, there will be very limited impact to the budget. The only impact potentially might be on the public works side where, depending on who ultimately is promoted to assistant director, the backfilling of a supervisory position. But that all is going to take a significant amount of time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. So again, very, very minimal budget impact, but in terms of the head count, we are remaining neutral.
Are there any comments or questions from commissioners? Is there any public comment on this issue? Oh, I didn't make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Now, is there any public comment on this issue? Okay, I will call the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Having that been the only item removed from the consent agenda, I will now ask for a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda, A, B, C, D, E, F. And is that it? Sorry, it's 2 pages. Yes. So all remaining items on the consent agenda, may I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our business agenda. Starting with Resolution 2023-41, this is a preliminary final minor land development plan approval, 2-lot subdivision at 317 Ivan Avenue. Mr. Norsini?
Thank you, Commissioner. The applicants here, they were here before you in caucus, which wasn't a vote, but to provide information. Solicitor Rice has created and drafted the approval resolution. 2 waivers they're requesting. One is the 500-foot radius for marking utilities, and the other is the installation of curb. And staff recommends that waiver be provided because the road doesn't have curb, and they're putting in the sidewalk and extending it to our property. And if they do get approval by the board tonight, it would be until they get their sewer. It would be conditional upon getting their sewer approval.
Can I hear a motion to approve? And a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments, either for the applicant or for Mr. Norsini?
Madam President, I have one comment.
Sure.
Since we did the resolution, they've filed revised plans. They basically updated it. So the plan date in the resolution should be April 19th, 2023. So that's the most recent plan that has come in, I think, within the last week or two. And Mr. Brosman provided me with that. So Steve, I don't know what was revised on it, but it was just some minor additions to what we looked at caucus.
Correct, along with some tree items. So I think that, Solicitor, great point. We could address that, if so approved, in the time between when they get their sewer approval and the plans are recorded.
So just the amendment to the resolution is not January 24th, 2023. It should be April 19th, 2023. That's the most recent plan.
Because we have the applicant here, is there anything that you can put up on the board so the people at home and at least my memory can get kind of jogged on this again? Thanks.
I'm George Brosman, representing the applicant. This is Scott Emerson. Scott's going to put up the plan.
And can you speak to even the minor changes that were just being referenced?
Sure. There were some updating, as mentioned, and a minor shift in the lot line between the 2 lots. I believe it was only about 1.8 feet, just a refinement of the plan. The plan still exceeds the minimum lot size for both lots. It's essentially the same plan that you saw at caucus with that adjustment.
And I'm sorry, and that adjustment was just your mapping, not the actual property line was adjusted?
The property line separating the two lots.
But it's just for mapping, not that there's been an actual adjustment on the property line, or was it just on the presentation of the?
Presentation.
Understood.
Line shifted over 1.86 feet.
Yeah, it's just the line internal to the property, not the surrounding property line.
But again, I'm trying to get clear. Did the line on the property, the land line, move? Or was it just the way you did the drawings didn't accurately represent the line on the property?
No, it moved.
It moved, okay.
Yeah,
That's
it moved.
all-
It
The
moved.
middle line moved
It's a
about
new-
1.8 feet.
It's a new line, so
Yeah.
they moved it, what did you say, George, 1.8?
1.8?
1.8 plus or minus feet.
1.8 feet, making one lot slightly larger and one lot slightly smaller. I thought you were asking about the perimeter. Of course, nothing changed there, but
Got it.
it was a shift between the two lots.
What was the purpose?
Yeah,
for-
why was
yeah,
that
for-
shift necessary? It's
Uh,
so small.
They've been refining the design of the homes, and as that design has proceeded, it seemed that this lot here got slightly larger to accommodate the refined home design.
Is that a setback? Is that because of a setback issue, or is that?
Yeah, our architect was on the assumption that they could do a cantilever over property setbacks, which they can't do. So when we overlaid the latest plan that we just got from them, they were just over by 1.8 feet.
And then, have you resurveyed the land, or does that get done?
The perimeter doesn't change. It's just, so there's no setback issues with the houses that.
The perimeter doesn't change, but because it's two separate lots, you're gonna be selling two separate houses, so.
Yeah,
They're
yes,
both separate
these plans,
survey.
these
Right,
plans.
Can you move?
Oh, I'm
Noticed
sorry.
that it got moved.
These plans have the survey dimensions of both of the lots with the adjustment, and they, it was such a minor change. Each lot still has over 14,000 square feet. The minimum is 10,000. So there is a new survey, perimeter meets and bounds, it's called, for each lot, and that was submitted to the township.
Sorry. Yeah, so when it shifted over, say, to the right, the house on the right shifted over as well, but it's still within the bounds.
Right. Both houses will fit in the, this is the
So-
building setback line. so-
George, again, you've
Oh, I keep
pulled the,
pushing it. I'm
would
sorry.
this be easier to use the hand mic?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so each lot has what we call a building envelope, and they're the dotted lines for each lot. They have the front yard setback, the rear yard setback, and the side yard setbacks. So this lot 2 was essentially made 1.8 feet larger by shifting the line slightly to the right. That was the smaller lot to begin with, so it's still a little less smaller. So yes, the house that would be ultimately built on Lot 2 could go a little closer to Lot 1, but it will remain within these dotted lines.
Yeah, and the envelope on the right side, did it move over?
It would have moved as well because of the lot line being shifted.
And it's not bumping into the setback on the far right?
No.
Okay. And then besides that, everything else, like plantings, trees, all that stuff, is what you showed from before?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there other questions on these plans? In order to correct the resolution, do I have to call for an amendment for the date?
No, it's just a motion to approve the resolution with the change that has been discussed.
Great. So I will ask for a motion to approve the resolution with the amended date.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this development? And I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward, yeah, thanks. Look forward to seeing that go up right next door. Okay, we are moving on to Resolution 2023-44. This is authorizing payment of $20,000 to support the 2023 Wayne Music Festival, LLC, which is scheduled for June 10th, 2023. I will ask for a motion
So moved.
and a second,
Second.
and I will open it up for discussion by commissioners. Do you want to speak to this, Jack? This is in your
Sure.
ward.
Yeah. So first off, thank you for listening to this. I appreciate the time. Obviously, if you don't know about it, if you're watching the Wayne Music Festival, it's a phenomenal event. It puts Wayne on the map every year in ways that are extremely helpful to the businesses that operate out of the downtown. We were, I think, on the cover of Mainline Times magazine, specifically with the Wayne Music Festival being pictured on the cover. It's a great time, and if you haven't been to it in the past, you should come out. The township has a budget that it offers for a lot of the events that are put on by the neighborhoods. So we do parades in a lot of different areas. This is like a parade, but it's a super parade. It provides revenue to the businesses that work there. It gets the name for the township out in a way that makes a big difference. And it just kind of promotes Radnor in the area. People come to this in a way that they're not really going to come to our Memorial Day parade. So the ask is basically give us more than what you would normally do for the parade, and let's spend that on the Wayne Music Festival and do something that's bigger and better. It's also not so much money, however, that we are underwriting the event. I know that in previous years we have been asked, and this board has said no to an application to be either the title sponsor, be the underwriter of the event, take over the event altogether. So this is kind of the happy medium.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Maggie?
Yeah, one quick question. So I know that this event generally ends up with a profit that goes to charity. So I guess the question is, if the profit is $20,000, is it just our money going to charity? And how do you resolve that in your head, I guess?
So I am not the person who runs the event. I've seen their 990s in the past. I can tell you I don't recall them making $20,000 in the past. I think in the past it's been like $4,000 or $5,000. The concept is really the money basically goes to fund the event, and if there's a little bit left over because the cost of the bands is quantized, then that ends up going to charity. I think it would be reasonable to ask the question, donate it to a Radnor Township charity, donate it to our library or something, and that's actually a conversation that I've had with Kenny in the past. He's expressed a willingness to do so, but number one, I don't have authority to negotiate on his behalf, and number two, I have not put that question to him as directly as you will get the money if. So I suspect that if we make that ask, you'll get a yes, but he would have to be the person who's running the event to tell you.
Other commissioners?
Sure.
Commissioner
So
Farhi?
this is, in the past, I think it was last year, and it's always the same set of questions, Commissioner Myers, you bring up, that if we're first money in, so to speak, we should be first money out. But this typically costs, I guess it was about $160,000 all said when you look at what it taxes our police, our public service as well. Is this an additional $20,000 on top of that 164, give or take, or is this part of that?
So I don't know what the actual number is for the police, and frankly, I don't acknowledge the idea that we parcel out our police in that way. We provide police services to everyone in the township, no matter what you're doing. So saying that we're providing special funding for this event and calling it the police is a little dishonest. But to answer your question, the $20,000 would be a cash support that's being offered.
So it would be
to
on
the-
top of, but,
Well, I disagree, but I understand what you're
okay.
saying.
Well, you know, when Villanova has a function, they pay our police, they subsidize. So this is another private, is this a 503C?
It
This
is.
entity a five? Pardon, it's under an LLC. So they're incorporated, so to speak. So asking them is not disingenuous. So it takes slight offense to that. So the budget that we're looking at is going from about 164, if I'm correct. Bill? No? Or is it to 180? Or where's this?
Sean, can you, sorry, just for clarification, what is the number that you're referring to,
So
164?
and I don't have it, again, I wish we had something up on the screen from last year to this year, but I remember, what, it was 40, yeah, but then when you factor in police, I think we got, Jake, did we get up to around 160? I know we were.
I don't have the number, but I know what you're getting at. I mean, there's a monetary value with the resources that we provide the event.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I completely agree with you, but it's good to know, and it should be known.
I just want to know what, we're talking about money, but we're talking about 20,000. Where does this 20,000 go into everything else? So if there's nothing up on the screen, it's really, really hard for me to kind of gauge this. So again, if you could have those numbers, what this is all in for the township with the 20,000 or without the 20,000, that's kind of how I want to see it. And I would think that the people at home, because this is their money, that they'd like to see it as well. That's my only question. I don't know where this 20, is this an additional?
So the 20,000 is a cash contribution to the event. I recall from last year, we had a very detailed presentation
Yes.
about how the police were going to manage the event, and they did tabulate it. My memory put it at about $40,000 to $46,000
So it
in my
went
mind.
from 40 to 20, or is it going from 40 to 60?
No, so there's
Sorry.
nothing in this ask this evening, in this resolution this evening, that would say that we will not provide police at the level that we have. So
That we'll
it's
do.
wholly separate. So we are going to put police on this event whether or not we
That's
do
fine.
this $20,000, because to the point that Commissioner Larkin made, and I know that our chief of police is very dedicated to keeping all major events like that as safe as possible. So this is a wholly separate. I think
Okay, then-
after the discussion we had about the fest last year, I think, you know, that the police costs are embedded in our budget.
Okay,
It's
so
not a,
that's-
it's not a
that's fine.
pullout.
That's fine. So how much did the township give to this organization for the funding last year? Bill, do you have a number?
Nothing.
Was that 40,000, 20,000?
We gave
or
them
zero?
no money last year. We provided police services,
I
no
thought we
cash.
gave, so we didn't give any money
No,
last
they
year?
got no cash last year.
So
we said no to
backstopped
that.
them? I thought we did something.
We
no?
did not. There was an ask in front of us from Mr. Kearns that we would support the event at $75,000, and we voted that down. The conversation about policing was wholly separate. We supported that through our policing budget. It's how we protect and serve our large events. But we gave no cash last year. This
So
is the
it's gonna
first
be-
time they've asked
okay.
for this.
So it's going to be $20,000 as well as our staff. That's what it's going to be. And to Commissioner Meyer's point, can we backstop that 20,000? There's no, my guess is there's not going to be an appetite from this board, but again, it comes down to, pardon?
I'm not sure what you mean when you refer to
Well, it's what you said,
backstop.
that if they make 20,000, that the township should get made whole before that goes to a charity. Or we're using the taxpayers' money to put money to a nonprofit, which is fine and it's great, but no one's getting a tax write-up on it. So I don't have a problem with helping someone out. If it does stay in the township, I would prefer that be the case if you do find a charitable to give it. But yeah, it's a great event. There's just always going to be a hiccup or two prior, but that's
Are there other comments?
what it is, as long as it's 20,000.
Comments or questions from other commissioners?
Yeah, so
And I agree with everything that Jack said. Great event. Encourage everybody to come out if they haven't been there in the past. And it does a lot of good, and it puts Radnor on the map. My reluctance is the same that I shared last year, and it's the process. Now this is the second year in a row where we've had this discussion, and I'm wondering why we are not asking for this conversation during budget season. Why is it not a line item in our budget if we know we're going to be supporting this year after year?
Yeah, I think that in the past, Mr. Kearns has come out and asked that this be an item in the budget. And I think he specifically asked for that last year, and we chose not to include it in the budget last year. So the answer to your question is, why is it not in the budget? Because the board chose not to put it in the budget. Now we're coming up on the season, and frankly, Ken has said more than once, probably going to do it this year, don't really have the appetite to keep doing this year after year and not get support. So we can continue trespassing on his goodwill in the hopes that we continue having this awesome event that the township, we support. We do a lot of work on this. I think that it's unfair to parcel out the dollars that we spend on police for this any more than we do for all of the other organizations that we support with our police and staff. But we do contribute to it, but we're not the organizers, which means that when he decides that he's done donating his time to this event that he's really built over time, it's probably going to go away and we won't have it anymore. If we support it, then we get to keep it, and it's a nice thing, and we want to have it. We all want to have it. So why is it not in our budget? Because we didn't budget for it. Should we decide to pay for it now? Yeah, we probably should.
All right, well, and I've had these conversations with people, so just to be transparent, I will not be supporting it tonight, but I would like to see it come back in October and be part of the pot of money that we look to dole out to 501c3s and other organizations. Otherwise, I think it just sets a precedent where mid-year, folks can just come in and ask for $20,000, $30,000. I know you guys always say it's not a lot, it's only $20,000, but 501c3s, it was only $80,000. Add this on top, now we're up to about $100,000. So it adds up quick, and it should all be part of one conversation, and we should have that decision in October and set the budget. And so we're not having these conversations mid-year when anybody can come in and have this request.
Just one quick follow-up, and that is how much, and they're there in the audience, how much have you guys raised to date? And is this maybe putting the cart in front of the horse where, we're going to donate money, that's fine, but maybe they should say, look, here's our shortfall. It's kind of a plan B, not a plan A, so to speak, where we'll give them money, but Jake, to your point, it's expected that we'll do it. Maybe there's a year or two where they can raise it all themselves, and then the township would not, we could save the $20,000. So I don't know if you guys want to come up, if you're comfortable sharing that, yeah, or not. But that's kind of my question.
Ken Kearns, 221 Walnut Avenue. So just to clarify a couple of things why this has come up a couple of years in a row is obviously last year, coming out of a pandemic, we had a very difficult fundraising environment. This event is free. We need to keep it free because the logistics of making a ticketed event are more trouble and more cost than they're worth. So we've ruled that out, especially we've talked to the police and public works. We had this meeting about how can we improve this, and that kind of always comes up when we talk about fundraising. It just doesn't work. This year, we've also had some challenges fundraising because when companies are laying people off, it's hard for them to write a check for a sponsored event in the townships. It's just the reality of what's happening. We lost two of our largest sponsors. So we were asking for a township contribution to the event, period. Not a charitable component, just for the costs of producing this event at the level of which we've had it working on for the last, 2 or 3 go-arounds here. We skipped 21 and 22. So we had 19 we had last year. And both of those were challenging to raise money. We have, I think, 70 different sponsors, everyone from $100 to $10,000 and everything in between. But yes, to your point, I'd love to have this in the budget. It would make things so much easier. We're doing these, the group that is producing this for us and doing the production side is doing this in King of Prussia and Malvern, and they put it in their budget, and they have a series for the community development component of it. And I think it's something that we should be, in my mind, our team here, and I've got all of our great volunteers that help us out with this on the WBA, here to support. And they're taxpayers, obviously. They understand the benefit and the cost-benefit analysis of having an event like this in Radnor. It's very unique. It has put us on the map. It's very high profile. It's got us on the cover of magazine. Just kind of the things that, for $20,000, you'd pay a marketing company to get that kind of exposure. So, we're asking for the township to start helping us ease the process of raising the money for this event, which is by far the most difficult piece of the puzzle. The production piece of it, and even the booking the bands and all the day of logistics, all kind of run like clockwork now because we've been doing this for 7 years. Police, public works, the way that the PennDOTs and generators, this stuff is like clockwork. It's amazing to watch that thing be built in that amount of time. But the fundraising piece continues to be the challenge. So we're simply asking for the township to start helping fund an event that benefits the township. And that's why I wanted to simplify what I understand all your questions, because it's moved around over the years with the charitable component, and the messaging gets lost and confused. And I just want to make it clear that this is under the Wayne Music Festival LLC, which is the corporation that's literally just set up for this event. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I go?
Maybe.
I do want to thank everybody for coming out on a Monday night to help support their big supporters in the community and volunteer for the event. And it's a great day all around. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I am going to vote with a strong yes on this. It is, I think, one of the premier events in our township. We have been supporting parades that are also put together by citizens with nonprofits, and they really care about their community, and we do that without any discussion because they're small events and they only get $4,000 from the township to do those events. So this one sort of dwarfs those, not only for our own residents, but it has been pointed out, it brings people into our community who might take a shine to it and want to keep coming back to our amazing businesses and spend some more time and money here with us. So I'm a big yes for this. I think it's sort of a no-brainer for everything that we get back from this event. I understand that fundraising is challenging. Having done it for a living for 18 years, I can completely understand, and it is cyclical, and it is affected by the external economic climate. So I think this will get you a little ways towards a very large budget, and I think it's a showing that this board and this township supports the event in in all the ways. So my vote's going to be yes. I'm glad you asked for it. I do agree that it should be in the budget. Commissioner Abel, I'm going to kick it back to you that maybe you and I are going to work on a way to talk about community contributions in the
I agree.
budget long before it's too late to do it.
Yep. We'll get that going.
But I think since we don't have that kind of system in place right now, I'm a big old yes on this one. So any other comments from the board?
I second that. I think it's a wonderful community event. It's something, I think there's a lot of transparency in there. This is a gift. It's something that we're doing because we believe in everything that the event does in terms of bringing goodwill into the township and exposure. And that only creates more economic success. So you have my vote.
Others? Is there any other public comment? Oh, sorry. I didn't see you, Commissioner Rob.
I agree. I think it's a great event. I know people that come all the way from California for the event. It's just a great event.
Any public comment on this item before we take a vote? Okay. I will call a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Congratulations. You can talk to somebody else about how to get the check. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move next to Resolution 2023-42. This is the resolution of Radnor Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, adopting an updated emergency management plan. Can I hear a motion to approve and a second?
Second.
Chief, is this you?
I'd like to turn it over to Sergeant Gluck, our Office of Emergency Management Coordinator.
Oh, sorry, Sergeant. Hi.
How you doing? Sergeant Chris Gluck, Radnor Police Emergency Management Coordinator. The purpose of the resolution for this is every few years we have to review our current emergency operations plan. And when we do so, we make sure that certain changes are updated, and then they have to be approved by the board to move it further to make us eligible for grant funds should a disaster occur. There were very, very minor changes made. We weren't sure where Commissioner Borowski would be, but now we have Mr. Riley. He's been mentioned in the program, the plan, I should say. Also, the Mill Dam Club Emergency Action Plan was updated in November of 2022 with the assistance of the county as well as the folks there and our engineer, Steve Norsini. And of course, the promotion of Public Works Director Ricky Foster and our new Fire Inspector Mike Mesco. So all that information is noted, and if you were to approve it, we would pass it to the county.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much for getting this to us early so we could review it. It was really fabulous. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was extremely thorough. The thing that I liked about it, and then our conversation earlier, is that any or almost any institution, and if you could speak to it, can come to you and ask for a threat assessment, and if you could speak to that it's a free program. So if you're a church or a school or maybe a religious organization or some kind of, I don't know, do you do businesses? Do you do businesses? But if you could just speak to what you do and how
through
you
the
get it
police
done.
department, we do offer a program of a building assessment for security purposes, which is done by Detective James Metzler and Officer Ken Pyrie of the Highway Unit. They are specially trained. The chief made it sure to have someone on our staff who has an understanding of that program. And yes, if you do contact our police department, we can put you in touch with those officers, and they will come out and conduct a assessment of your facility. It does take an extended period of time because they're checking the facility during day and during night hours for lighting and doors and how everyone uses the facility itself, and then they'll give you some guidance on how that would work.
Other questions, comments? Is there, are there any public comments on this issue? Okay, I will call the vote. All in favor say aye. And thank you for your hard work on it. It was a great product and very informative.
Thank you.
Moving on now to Resolution 2023-43, a resolution of Radnor Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, adopting the Delaware County Hazard Mitigation Plan. May I hear a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And Sergeant, you want to fill us in on this one too?
Sure, that one's going to fall on me again. Every 5 years, the county's hazard mitigation plan has to be reviewed and updated. And for this time period, it was October of 2021, where our engineer and myself, Steve Norsini, and I were asked by the county officials to take part in the steering committee for this plan. 49 municipalities total the county. Out of 33, we represented ours. We discussed certain matters. It was done via, obviously at the time it was done via Zoom, so we could discuss with everybody safely. We came up with certain indicators that we have certain hazards that other towns don't. We also mentioned certain facilities. We discussed that, and then all in all, it goes into a complete plan for the county itself. It is currently considered the 2022 draft of the plan. It needs to be adopted by all members of the county to become the 2023 plan itself, which is why we're here. And also in adopting this hazard mitigation plan from the county level, we make ourselves eligible for funds to, responding to disasters or mitigation plans that makes us available to access those funds through PEMA and FEMA.
There are questions or comments from commissioners?
Sorry, just one question. This is all coming from the stormwater fund, or is this coming from a bond? Because it's 2.3 million, not E, F, and G. And I'm not trying to lump them together.
Sorry,
Yeah,
we're
still on.
on D.
We're on.
This is about the hazard mitigation plan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my apologies.
Hold that for the next. Thanks. I do have one quick question. Can you identify for us one of the hazards that are unique to Radnor?
I would say the flooding issue is what's most unique, but we're hopefully going to curb that slightly with our program that Steve came up with for the South Wayne parking lot, which was a great program. FEMA actually acknowledged it on one of their grant meetings to say how great the funds were going to be used to mitigate that flooding issue. So we're very proud of that project, and we hope that it works very well.
Excellent. Further comments from commissioners? Any comments from the public? I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we are moving to item E. This is a motion to approve the authorization to receive sealed bids for the North Wayne Field and Cohen Park parking lot stormwater best management practice projects at a combined estimated construction cost of $650,000 to be funded from the stormwater fund. I will open by asking for a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And Mr. Norsini, can you talk to us about this?
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to address one thing. Ms. Pilling brought up the sidewalks, and I will just want to say that's a big team effort, and obviously this board's a team, but it's a team that gets that done. So just want to let that known. So the board may recall that they just recently awarded the tree trench project in North Wayne. So in lieu of what we had at one point was a proposed very large project, while we're still searching for that next large project, the plan is to do incremental measures throughout North Wayne. So we have the tree trench project going in. These two parking lots, Melior Design had to determine that the 10-year, 1-hour event was the most damaging and most frequent to Radnor Township. So these two parking lots, the proposed project is for the runoff from each parking lot in a 10-year, 1-hour event will be handled by the stormwater management system. And as part of that, when we're all done, they're newly paved, parking spaces, parking bumpers. To Commissioner Farhi's original question, all three of these projects, definitely this, are funded from the Stormwater Fund. So our request tonight is authorization to receive bids for both of these projects. We are under the gun a little bit. We need to get them done during the summer, especially the North Wayne Field, which the school district did give us permission to do this project. We thank them. And we want to get that done before fall and the programs start up again.
Can I just follow up, Steve? So this is not bond money? This is all money that's coming from the stormwater fund?
So Mr. White had brought forth previously, these projects under $500,000 are funded directly from the $1 million a year we take in the stormwater fund. So these two, E and F, are coming directly from the fund.
Madam President, Steve, and I really apologize for interrupting. I mean, the bottom line is all of these projects are being funded through the stormwater fee. It's all coming out of the stormwater fund. The mechanism is we had a threshold of $500,000. So anything over $500,000 we have included in our plan for the stormwater bond that was presented. So for item E, the one that we're talking about now, and then obviously the infrastructure one, item G on the agenda, those will both be funded with the bond, while the $375,000 item on F will be funded with the cash of the fund. So we get $1 million of revenue per year into the fund. So we're taking basically, in simple terms, we're taking half of that, applying it to projects that are under $500,000 per year, and we're taking the other half of that and allocating it to pay off the bonds that we're borrowing for these larger projects.
So, I'm sorry, so you're saying that, so the 650 is coming from the bond, correct? Because that's over 500.
Yes, it'll be paid for by a bond. The
And then reimbursed.
money being used to pay for the bond is coming out of the stormwater fund.
Okay, so the principal and the interest on top of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so the 1.3 and so that's 2 million, and then the 375 is coming from the fund. So even some of these have variances. Are there other? But I thought that how you satisfy some of the debt obligations, the interest you use from the stormwater fund as well, correct? I mean, how are we paying the interest from this $15 million stormwater or $10 million stormwater bond that we spent? And then how do we pay the interest on that? Because I thought that comes from the fees, and then we pay down the principal. That was my understanding, is that basically you fund these things from a bond and pay the interest and maybe some of the principal, maybe a sinking fund from the stormwater fee. Now, it just seems like these are large numbers.
Yes,
And that is my concern, that you have a variance that goes over, you have another stormwater issue. Those are my concerns.
Yeah, and I understand, but these are known projects. They've been on the books for some time, and they were contemplated as part of the plan. So while they're large numbers, we knew about them and built them into the plan. The separating of principal and interest and debt payments, it's all coming out of the stormwater fund, and for our purposes, when we talk about debt service, it includes both principal and interest. So there's no separation, there's no separate payment plan for the interest. It's all debt service that's coming out of the stormwater fund, paying for both principal and interest.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's secondary of, you're paying off you're paying off the bond, you're paying off the bond. The issue is there's more stuff coming down the pipeline. Is there going to be an increase is there anything more in the pipeline that would really hurt this fund, and where residents may be looking at an increase in the fund next year? And again, I don't know if you can speak to it or not, but a lot of times, Steve, these projects go well over budget sometimes.
Well, before Steve addresses the project-specific funding, if you'll recall, the plan that the board reviewed and approved, there was no stormwater fee increase contemplated for a couple of years. And we knew that there was ample cash in the fund to absorb some of the additional projects that we knew were coming and pay for some of the debt service without adjusting the fee. Now, that's not to say that in a year we're gonna find the project in North Wayne that we're looking for that really is a massive solution. That's a game changer, and that's a whole different conversation that we can't sit here and predict now. What you have tonight with these projects are ones that have been contemplated, they were part of the plan, and now we're just getting to the execution of the plan.
So you're saying they're paid for? They're accounted in?
They're planned for. Yes.
They're not paid for, not yet.
So, Commissioner, to your point, we include a contingency in every number that comes to this board. It's construction, contingency, and inspection, right? So we're anticipating something, whatever it may be. We've been before you many times for the South Wayne project. We are still well within the budget for that project.
Any other questions, comments? So on this item, on the North Wayne Field and Cohen parking lot, I know we sort of mixed in some items we'll be getting to, but just on the authorization to receive the sealed bids for these two projects, I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Okay, so now we'll move to item F, which is authorization to receive sealed bids for the Ithan Valley Park exit bridge culvert repair at an estimated construction cost of $375,000 to be funded from the Stormwater Fund. May I hear a motion and a second?
Second.
Thanks. Any other questions? We sort of answered some in the prior discussion, but anything specific to this project that you want to tell us about? Sorry, before questions. Steve, can you tell us about it?
So this bridge was damaged. It's been closed for some time. It's the exit to Ithan Valley Park. We went through our permitting, so we're now ready to get this going because we're going to do work on the other bridge, but we want to get this one. This suffered the most damage, so that's what we're here requesting for tonight.
Okay, sorry. So now I will ask for questions or comments from commissioners on this. It does need to be fixed. I will make that comment as I drive by there often. Any comments from the public?
Sarah Pilling, Garrett Avenue. This question actually is for Steve. Did you include the culvert that goes under South Ithan Avenue from the friend of mine who you were not aware that it was there in the road?
This is a completely different project. It's been in planning for 2 years. So that's another project, that we're aware of. But this is specific to the park and to that exit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comment? I will call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? I'm not seeing any. Thank you. And item G, motion to approve authorization to receive sealed bids for the, we had just had this argument. How do you pronounce that? Chamonix? Okay. It's Chamonix. We had this argument the other day. So somebody's going to call me and tell me this.
So us old timers always called it Chamonix.
Chamonix, okay. Sorry, I digress. Authorization to receive sealed bids for the Chamonix Road East Culvert replacement at an estimated construction cost of $1.3 million to be funded from the Stormwater Fund. I will ask for a motion and a second.
Second.
Mr. Norsini?
Thank you, Madam President. So 10 years ago, 8 years ago, the bridge just north of here, that culvert fell apart. We did an emergency repair. During the design, I requested a 5-foot wide sidewalk on the bridge, and there's a specific stone look. It's actually a form liner. This has a different culvert underneath the ground that you won't see, but the net effect is the same. There's still going to be a 5-foot sidewalk on the bridge, and both of these are contemplating someday a future sidewalk on that side of the road. It will have that same form liner look, the stone, if you will. There is a big concrete channel that goes towards the pond. Major repairs are going to be done to that, as well as a new valve that provides water to the pond, one that won't clog up. It's a much simpler design, but very effective. So while we've been doing this permitting and reviews, you may have noticed we have barrels out there on the bridge. That's to keep people away from the edge because the one wall has an extreme lean. So this is a priority project, not just from a stormwater conveyance issue, but from a public safety. We'd really like to get this done and request your approval.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
So I'm in favor of all of these. They need to be done, but there is something looming out there that has not yet been done. And last year, and I'm just bringing it up because it kind of makes sense, it flows with what we're talking about. Last year, we talked about the culvert here being fixed and also all the management of the stream coming from up north down south. Is it north to south, right? So high to low. So where are we with that? I mean, we kind of left things hanging in the balance. Part of that is my fault. We had a talk with the community about a year ago, and I'm wondering what our follow-up is. What do you recommend we do about the water mitigation issues and that culvert here in South Wayne?
So thank you, Commissioner. So actually the South Wayne project is beneficial to that neighborhood, to what we call the Midland neighborhood. If you recall, Carroll Engineering did a feasibility study and basically provided a menu to the residents in the township that we could pick things, or the board could pick things to do. The culvert was a very tricky one in that it needs to be increased considerably, and that would be rather onerous to a lot of the property owners who have that in their backyards, right? But there were other projects, as you noted, so there is very little, next to none, in the form of storm sewer infrastructure to convey water off the streets and just get it to the creek. That's not a flood mitigation project, but it's just what is standard in today's subdivisions doesn't exist in those neighborhoods. Where that outfalls into the creek, another option was to dredge that creek, to get that silt that's been deposited there for decades and decades out, and let it come and convey better. So to your suggestion, and we did task the residents and said, what would you like to see? Perhaps, as you had noted, another meeting. We step through these and review these, and then get some feedback, and staff will bring something to the manager and the board that says, hey, here's a project that we recommend that would help.
President Mulroney is showing me a graphic, but I don't think it pertains to what we're talking about. So the one that we're talking about, yeah, that's Chamonix. I'm sorry, I can't say Chamonix. The one we're talking about is the one right here outside the township building.
Right, thank you.
It was all to address basically what we called the Midland, Pembroke, that area. We called it the Midland neighborhood. It's Luella, it's all that.
And did you get the answer you needed?
Yeah, so from what I'm hearing you say, we will follow up with another meeting with the township residents and take it from there. I know that we had a lot of interest from Mr. Noon, who could not make the meeting last year at this time. He would like to readdress this, as well as some other residents I've heard from today. And yeah, I think we just need to, now that it's spring and we're past the South Wayne parking lot and middle school, and that whole part of the project, it's probably a good time to address this part of what could be.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the Chamonix culvert replacement project? I'm not seeing any public comment on this item. I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to ordinance 2023-02. This is an introduction amending the code of the Township of Radnor, Chapter 280, Section 135, requiring evidence of sewer capacity and conditional use applications and prohibiting multiple applications on the same property. I will start by asking for a motion.
So moved.
And a second. And then I will ask Commissioner Larkin to introduce this, or John Rice.
Well, I'll give you the genesis of the ordinance, then John can maybe speak about its legality and the background there.
Thank you.
So we have had a couple of large conditional use projects come to us. And one of the consistent questions that I get from residents when they do is, what are the developers going to do about the sewer capacity? And my response has always been, I don't really know, that's their problem, not mine. They can get the conditional use and then not be able to build because they don't get the sewer permits, or they can get the conditional use and they can do whatever they need to do in order to go get them. But one way or the other, that's not really where we are at this stage. One of two things is always going to happen when we have a conditional use application. Either they're going to get the permits afterwards or they're not. If the answer is they're going to get the permits afterwards, then it's a fairly minimal burden to ask the developer to go out and get those permits in advance, or just evidence that demonstrates that you would have the ability to do so. So a letter from RHM saying that permits exist and are available to you, or something. Or option B is you're not going to be able to get those permits. And what that ends up doing is we end up coming in and listening to testimony for a conditional use hearing, which every single one of us has a real job that we do in real life, and so this is time that we lose with our families and friends. But more importantly, there are almost always parties protestant or residents who want to come in and give public comment. Sometimes they end up hiring counsel, so they expend their own money in order to oppose what it is that's going on or work with the developer to find a more advantageous way to do what's going on. If the net result of the whole thing is that the project is not going to be built or is not going to be built as proposed, let's not waste our time and let's not waste the residents' time and the residents' money in responding to exactly what it is that is not going to be built because you don't have the sewer permits. In addition to that, and this, the genesis of this comes entirely from John. It's an excellent idea. He's added a provision to the ordinance that would prevent someone from filing multiple conditional use applications. The concept being that you file one, you hear from us, you get our response. You take that up on appeal to the Commonwealth Court, and in addition to doing that, you would then use our response as the roadmap to file a second conditional use application, and then maybe a third or a fourth, and you basically overwhelm the board. We've been lucky that we have not seen one of the applicants to our board do that in the recent past, in my memory at all, but it's certainly a legal tactic that they could pursue, and so just forestalling that would be a nice way to close a loophole in our ordinances.
Thank
I
you.
should also parenthetically just say, well, I'm the person who is the scrivener for the bill. The idea for this originally comes from Lisa Borowski, and I think that it was a really good one, so I don't want to just take credit for her good idea.
Thank you. Mr.
Yeah.
Rice, do you have anything to add?
Just a couple additional comments. On the sewer issue, we know this public sewer is sparse for most development projects, and this would only apply to conditional uses, not your run-of-the-mill subdivisions. You had a 2-lot subdivision in that came in tonight that has sewer capacity for one of the lots, but not for the other lot. So, until something breaks loose downstream, your normal subdivisions are going to process. Conditional uses, we had the most recent one won 4 nights of testimony on Zoom with multiple parties. I personally, in other municipalities, have been involved where there's been 3 conditional uses filed on the same property over and over again. So that was sort of one was on appeal, another one came. That was on appeal, a third one got filed. So it puts there's a lot of time and effort and expense that the municipality has to expend. I mean, I don't think most of you want to have 3 conditional use hearings on the same property over a 1-year period. So that was the second part of this. I adapted from something that's currently in the municipality's planning code that prevents multiple substantive challenges on the same property at the same time. That was drafted, and I was involved in that maybe 15 years ago. So I adapted that to conditional uses. It's almost identical, except, you have one shot, and until you either withdraw that application or you win it, or it's finally decided against you, you don't get to file a second application. So it hasn't happened in Radnor. It could happen. You have different types of conditional uses. You have land available to develop. So it just made sense to add with what Jack was looking at to reduce us spinning our wheels on conditional use applications that might come in over time, multiple ones. So tonight is just introduction. This has to go to the planning commissions, both of them, county and township, and then they may tweak this. It'll come back to you before it gets advertised for any type of a hearing. But you're looking at 45 days probably before this gets on the books.
I just have a question about the multiple conditional use applications, perhaps in your experience. Are these conditional use applications on the same issue, or is it that the same applicant comes back?
Same applicant. I mean, the one that I was a hearing officer on the one this was in Bucks County, and I was a hearing officer on the second one. And someone else, the Board of Supervisors did the first one, and then they recused themselves. I got pulled into the second one, and then I heard there was a third one. So what happened was, first one was denied, it was appealed. Second one got filed. They changed the plan to address some of the reasons for denial in the first one. There was a decision on that one. That got appealed. And then a third one came in that also changed the plan, not substantially, but there's nothing in the state code or your ordinances which say I can file conditional use for 30 single-family dwellings, and then I can file one for 20 single-family dwellings, if that one gets denied, and then I can file a third one for 50 townhomes. If the second, so it's just something that developers do, some developers do. I haven't seen it in Radnor. I've seen it in Bucks and Montgomery County, a couple different places. And it takes a lot of time and effort to do the conditional use hearings. And you got residents that get sort of cranked up about it, and then, you know, they've got to expend time and effort and money if they want to participate. So, you know, one's enough. You have, give it your best shot for a conditional use application and let the chips fall. You can't keep filing them. And Jack's, the issue with sewer capacity is that's something that'll have to be looked at the application stage. So if the application comes in and it doesn't meet that requirement, that gets kicked and returned. But you need to have an ordinance provision to do that. So that's why I think that's important too. There's my brief comments.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, because this is still a little hazy for me. So the multiple applications is like, hey, we're going to try to put 12 homes in. If that doesn't work, we'll do 8. If that doesn't work, we'll do 6. So they're just throwing everything out there. Okay, and that's what you're trying to avoid. And then, are there fees associated with these applications or not?
There's a conditional use application fee for every one.
Okay.
But it doesn't really cover the township's costs, total costs. It's probably, I'm going to guess, maybe $1,500,
Okay.
more or less. But, you know, it's a hearing, so you have to have a court reporter. It's sworn testimony. You know, it's can be time consuming. So it's just a way to eliminate that possibility down the road.
Got it.
Other questions, comments from commissioners? Any comments from the public? Okay, I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Okay, it'll move to advertise and it'll come back in front of us.
Well, it'll go to the
Planning.
Once the county and the township have reviewed it, it'll be advertised. Come back to you at that point.
Great, thank you. Okay, that concludes our business agenda, so I'll ask for any reports from our board liaisons.
Yeah, I'll just start. So there was the Parks and Rec meeting, and I guess, Tammy, you're here. I don't know if you want to speak to it or not, but great job. We had, it was standing room only. If the fire marshal was in here, he'd probably say there were too many people talking about dogs at the Willows. So I do want to thank the people that came out and voiced their opinion. I still believe that there is a lot more that we need to dig into. We definitely did hear from, one group advocating for their position. I've spoken to privately with other stakeholders, but I still think that having a spirited discussion about this is definitely where we're headed. So thank you for everyone that came out, and I look forward to keeping on this spirited conversation. And then second, the Enke Field, the new rubber, that foundation around the playground looks great. And finally, we have the auto show this Sunday. So hopefully everybody can come and enjoy. I know, Moira, you won last year. So.
I was there. I did not win
No, it's not you. Well,
in any way.
Probably better that you didn't, you know? So yeah, so if you're around on Sunday and you like cars, head to downtown Wayne and yeah.
It's a really cool event. I encourage everybody to go. Are there any other reports from board committees or boards?
Yeah, on Saturday, they had the tree planting at Hartford Park. They had a great turnout from kids to grown-ups, and it also rained that night, so it really helped in the planning.
Excellent. Other reports? Yeah, go ahead.
Just quickly, so the Board of Health had lots of things to discuss. We briefly discussed the heretofore mentioned leash law, and I think sort of left that as, yes, it's safer to have your dog on a leash, but what's being worked out now and how it will happen probably has no public health implications. So maybe once a plan is worked out, I could take that back to the Board of Health. But I mean, I think the general thought was, sure, it's always safer to have your dog on a leash, essentially. Though there was some talk at the parks meeting about dogs that actually get more aggressive on a leash rather than when they're off a leash. And actually, I did a little research on that, and as Maury, you had said to me offhand, well, those dogs probably shouldn't be in the park. And that's actually pretty much where the veterinary data comes down, is that those dogs tend to have the ability to get aggressive anyway and probably aren't the best candidates to be off leash, and on leash should probably not be in the park.
Just to follow up, this is on. When you say the leash laws, are you meaning specifically to Skunk Hollow or just leash laws in general?
Well, we have a leash law in the township right now, except where the parks allow off-leash use, which is Hartford, or the parks policy says the dog needs to be under control.
Well, dogs need to be under control. That's an ordinance, period, throughout the township.
Well,
can't
the
have an
township
uncontrolled
says your
dog.
dog cannot be at large at all. They have to be on a leash.
Okay. So when you...
This is the internal real conflict issue, is we have two policies.
Sure, because I'm just, I guess my question, or where I'm going at, when you say the leash law that you talked at the Board of Health, do you mean in general, or are you specifically referring to the conversation that we had regarding at the Parks meeting with the Skunk Hollow? Because I mean, I'm going somewhere with this. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, and I can say that they were speaking more broadly than just Skunk Hollow. That
Okay, well,
in general, people and animals are probably safer if the animal is on a leash.
Correct. Dealing with Skunk Hollow, and Tammy and I think Steve Letcherton, and there's another gentleman there, Eric was his name, I think?
Mr. Bob Nicholas.
Okay, Mr. Bob Nicholas was there. And, I mean, there are a lot of steep slopes at Skunk Hollow that if you get, a dog comes and runs after you or hits you, you could definitely take a spill down a very steep cliff. And then the other issue when it comes to, again, the leash law and whether it's controlled, again, I'm still don't know if you mean this for the safety, the leash law, and I'm still don't know what you're getting. I feel that I asked the question a couple times. The other issue is feces at Skunk Hollow, and that is definitely a health and safety issue. I mean, I walked in, when their dog is off a leash, first thing it wants to do is run, go to the bathroom, and I mean, the owner's not even out of their car, and that dog is in the woods, and when you initially walk through Skunk Hollow, I mean, you can't go, maybe every 5 to 8 feet, there was a pile of feces. And if we're talking about public safety, I mean, there's a garden down those fields, right? I mean, it's an agricultural concern. Forget the health concern of someone getting bit, the dog could
There's
come
no
down and-
question, but if you have I mean, that's the point of having your dog on a leash.
No,
You see them.
I agree. I just
So,
don't know where
just-
you're, I don't know where
I'm
she's
gonna,
going.
I'm gonna
so-
wrap this up. We had
Yeah, I don't know
a,
where she's going
standing
with this.
room only meeting at Parks and Rec. It's gonna be a continued conversation there, here, Board of Health. I think it's an ongoing issue, and as we saw at I was watching from the comfort of my own home, and glad to say I didn't have to muscle in for a seat. A lot of people are really passionate about this issue. I think it needs a lot more exploration.
That my point is where the Board of Health is going to weigh in on issues like feces, on issues like getting bit, and then
That's right.
Then the actual specifics of that park of taking a tumble down one of those
Rabies
slopes.
as well, yeah. One other issue from the Board of Health is that we started, because we had just come off a very hot week when we had the Board of Health meeting, the discussion about cooling centers in the township, so more to come on that.
Thank you all. Any other? I guess I want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. Okay, I will ask if there's any new business. Yes.
I have something. I have a statement I'd like to share based on what Dorothy Potash came up and said earlier about anti-Semitism and everything going on in the community, and start with a bit of an anecdote. About 6 years ago, a friend had contacted me to let me know, and I was not a commissioner at the time, but I was very vocal in the community, and she called to let me know that, and this was during Easter Passover week, that with shaving cream, someone had put swastikas on a car, not her car, but a car parked in front of her home with some anti-Semitic racial slurs. And so we talked about what we should do, and I said, we have to call the police, and she said, absolutely not. My husband and I don't want to do that. We don't want to make waves. We don't want to bring any, we don't want to put any type of spotlight on us, and so we would rather that not be done. So we negotiated, and we at least called the Anti-Defamation League to report this. I say that because I tell that story because it's a fear of many minorities, and I am one, so I can speak to this with definite experience, that when you say something about something that's been done, you are often targeted and could be alienated, and it's a very scary thing to put yourself out there. So I'm very proud of Dorothy for coming in today and speaking about what's going on nationally and what's going on close to home in terms of anti-Semitism. It is a national problem, it's a community problem, and therefore it is our problem. And we need to be steadfast in addressing anti-Semitism and making sure that our Jewish community members know we are allies and are intolerant of property defacement, slander, hate speech, and intimidation. Radnor shares a zip code with Tredyffr in Easttown, where just this weekend, swastikas were graffitied onto stop signs and park signs. And we, the community members, need to constantly be educating our children about what anti-Semitism is and what racism is, what it looks like, what it sounds like, and to remind them to say something when they hear something or see something, and not just stand by, not just hear a Jewish joke or someone say the N-word on the bus, which happens on my child's bus almost daily. And, they need to be reminded to tell the bus driver if they're not confident enough to say something. But even in high school, my kids hear things in the middle school and the high school, racial jokes about Jewish people. It's happening, people. It's really happening. I'm not making this up. So I know that the Radnor PD is taking this seriously. They have a strong stance on crimes of defacement, harassment, hate speech, intimidation. And they're already taking action with people who are concerned about this in the community. And I think it's at least up to us to consider a proclamation to, as a township, let our Jewish community members know that we stand with them against anti-Semitism. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. Any other new business? Is there any old business?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go
I second Anne Marie's comments. What can we do, or is something that the township or board has done in the past in the issue?
So, Anna Marie suggested a proclamation. I mean, that's sort of a statement of our values that we can present to the community, but it doesn't have any teeth like an ordinance. There are, I have been approached by somebody who wants to talk about providing some draft language that's been passed in other municipalities that would almost set up like a local HRC, Human Rights Campaign, so that if there are any reports of discrimination, there would be a body to review that. I think in our local area, Lower Merion may have it, so I've just started to review some of that, and I would love to work with anybody who has an interest in it. The Pennsylvania Constitution does not protect LGBT community members. So there is no constitutional protection like there is for other protected characteristics in the Pennsylvania Constitution. So this would address it mostly on that level. I need to do some more research and conversations, but I would love to have colleagues who want to further this conversation together and see if we can think of something.
Good.
Okay, and I didn't mean to skip past the important conversation, but so I will call again for old business. And not seeing any, I'll ask for the final opportunity for public participation. And I will call for I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Thank you. Good night.